Okay, so I am going to be looking at this piece and this piece. This is a gin challenge, but I wanted to look at something like that's similar throughout both paintings, so similar themes, so just character and color balance and all of that. Poses, expression. These are just two very, very similar paintings here that I'm going to be looking at. All right. So everything about this painting is great. I think the motion, the composition is a little bit off, but the character design and the uniqueness of the characters, like the artifacts around them, are very, very, very cool. You have a couple of issues though, and they're pretty tricky. Right here, this honeycomb is like perfectly spaced almost between the arm and the background. Do you see that? That creates a tangent, so we don't want that. So we're just gonna go and carry that all the way through. Just like so. And just like this. And then I'll get the old layer and then just erase away for the arm. Oh, is it on a new layer already? Okay, I don't need to do that. Okay. So a tangent is when you have one object ending similar to or right at the edge of another object across the depth, whatever depth, it's ending along. And when we do that, we create this really icky looking awkwardness between the edges of both objects, and it's kind of weird. You can do it in photography as well, which is what ruins some photographs when you have like the end, let's say someone's picking up something off the ground and there's a bench in the background. The person's head, while this, let's say it's a horizontal photograph, there's a bench, there's a lake, and then the person's trying to be artistic and there's a guy picking up a coin off the ground. If his back or his head is aligned with the edge of the bench, which sometimes happens, actually we just paint stuff like this because we want a space for the bench and we want a space for the object, for the main character. So we don't want them to share spaces or overlap each other. We end up creating a tangent. So the head of the guy is aligned with the base of the bench. That's called a tangent. That's called something that when we have something right beside each other. At least that's how I understand it. So what we want to do is make them overlap because that's more interesting. And we create this like perpendicular crosshair between the two. They kind of overlap each other. When we have the ending of one rock over another, so we have a rock and then we have another rock and then we have a rock in the distance, and they're just like right there on each other. This one's all the way in the background. This one's in the foreground, and then we create this funny little similarity between them. Then we have it happens all over the place, but you just have to keep an eye out for areas where we have these really, really close edges of two objects across different depths. You can't have edges align across different depths. Sometimes you accidentally do it and it's not noticeable, but it's from directly on the line of sight, or if it's between different depth distances, we kind of have this weirdness happen. So do you see how it just fills in the space? It's just a little bit easier to look at. And then we have a little bit more space here that I could have used for another honeycomb floaty plate thing. Tangents can get a little bit more complicated in how they happen and how to use them, but that's as far as you need to know. Just don't align edges together. That's as far as you should be concerned with at this point. It's like the deal with like different kinds of lighting and ambient occlusion and all you just got to do is cast me a shadow and that's it. You don't have to worry about all the cool tricks and beside each other and all that. Okay, so I took care of that. Now I'm going to bring in the background color through her hair. So this is a subsurface scattering required. And I'm just throwing that with dodge tool like this. We create unintentional focal points because they create this like awkwardness. They're just about to touch, but not really, so they each get a stage. Alright, so what I did here was I cast the subsurface scattering, and now I'm going to cast her shadow, the shadow of her head and where the hair is thickest, through that subsurface scattering. So subsurface scattering isn't everywhere, it's just on the most translucent part of the hair. And there is a lot of color correction needed for this piece, a lot. Reason being, we have this dominant yellow color floating around in the atmosphere, and we have almost no effect of it on her skin tone and everywhere else. She's wearing yellow, the light source is yellow, everything should be touched by yellow. And it's not just a sunlight pale white yellow, this is a really, really neon yellow. So that's the color we need to apply to everything. So I'm going to quickly apply that wash over all the stuff in the painting. Just a quick yellow. There's no such thing as dark yellow, but we go to the nearest best value, which is like a blue-green, or we don't really have a dark yellow. We just have either orange or dark green. We don't really have a dark yellow. It looks like poop. Just take a look. That's baby diarrhea color. I don't know if you guys ever see baby diarrhea, but this is what it looks like. I'm serious. Like the first 3 months, I have like 15 cousins. I watched all of them grow up. I'm so sorry. You're probably eating or something. Okay, so we have a light source. We've identified the primary light source that's shining on her face. That's fine. But we have a bunch of secondary light sources so close to her they're acting like primaries. So that means we have to treat them like a light source. They are a light source. Her hand is also pointing up in the sky, and that's guiding our eyes away from the painting. So we're going to have to do something about that as well. So now I'm creating this glow back, and this is pretty much as bright goes when it comes to yellow on Photoshop, but this is how bright it gets. So I have to borrow some white, but just take a look at this. This is all secondary force creating glows. You see how you had that glow around the arm? Why didn't you have that glow around these pieces as well? The arm is not any more saturated or bright than the rest of these discs are. Or these plates, sorry. All these plates have the same kind of yellow. Okay, so just doing this has changed it significantly. Before, after. Do you see that? With the same kind of force, that light force that you're bringing in. So now we have to think about how these secondary light sources and all their strength are affecting the core shadows of the primary light source. Again, this is all you're responsible with. There's nothing else that you really have to do other than track down the primary light source and how it's affected. If you can just do that much, the painting will be so much better. Any painting will be so much better if you find a nice language between the primary and the secondary light sources. Primary shadows are not immune to secondary light source diffusion. They're very susceptible. Yeah, I don't know if you guys track my channel or my latest videos, but I recently uploaded a really ranty video, and I want to apologize for the change of subject in my uploads. That's why I don't even upload my after hours, because I just want the focus to be about classes. But I can't even bring that video down. Like, I've told off a lot of people in videos. A lot of you haven't caught those videos, but I usually just post a video and then take it down if I want to just tell something or someone off. I kind of use videos like that, but I take them down because I don't want the focus of my classes to be like this. But I'm going to keep that video up for a very specific reason. They just don't stop harassing me, and I want to make sure that that message is out there. I might even put it in the same place as the trailer, as the class trailer, like the channel trailer thingy that YouTube makes you do. I might just do that as well, just to make sure they're seeing it. If I keep uploading videos, they eventually won't see it. I know, I was really savage. I'm very, very sorry you guys had to endure all that salt mining. They just really got on my nerves. I was done. I think that also It would also help if you made the background a really dark purple instead of plain that black. That's dangerous because yellow and purple are complementary tones. You don't want to mess around with them, especially if you need that purple for the shadows and then you're using it for the background. The background is already black. So right now you're working with a black and white, black and yellow palette, which is a very successful palette. They're just really, really good together. So you don't want to bring in an extra little color in the background and damage that. So I'm just trying to find where this secondary light source is tracking along her face. Just like that, and there's spots where the shadows just happen, and then there's the cast shadow of the hair. Alright, and there's more instances like this across the I'm just using a soft brush. Wherever we have a primary shadow, we are diffusing it with the yellow. And this will really bring this painting back to life. As for the face and the expression, her eyes look lazy. Her eyes do not look like they're looking at the object. So I'm going to take care of that in a second. When you don't do expressions, when you don't do expression studies, you won't know when you need an expression in your painting. You think you're doing an expression because you raise the eyebrows up, well, just a little bit. That's not enough. That's not an expression. When someone's talking to you and they're telling you a crazy story about how they were the chosen one and a bunch of honeycombs flew around them and you're trying to explain to them how you felt, would you say, I felt fine. I felt fine. No, you would just tell them all this madness. You'd tell them all this crazy shit. They were finally chosen by the bee god and she became the champion of the bees or something like that. I don't know what the story is behind this, but her expression would be just mesmerized, and she doesn't feel mesmerized. She feels like she's just posing for an Instagram edgy photo with lots of filters. I want to see expressions. I want to see excitement. And how do you do that? You show more of the pupil and the iris. That's how. Period. You want to show excitement. You want to show that someone's awake and they're paying attention. If someone's talking to you and you don't trust that they're paying attention, you just have to look at their upper eyelid. Is it hiding a lot of their pupil and their iris? Or is it hiding, or is it not hiding? Is it just, are you seeing a lot of their iris and their pupil? And that's how you can fake being interested in someone's conversation. Just open up your eyes just a little bit, and you can just pretend that you're interested in what they're saying. So everyone right now who's listening to me, just open up your eyes a little. Pretend you're interested. I'm joking. All right, so I'm opening up the eyes. I'm trying to make them look focused at her. So what we do is we direct the first eye up and then the second eye follows. Okay. I think you should keep her mouth a little more closed, less open, because we're trying to put the expression all in the eyes. The mouth has dark black lipstick. If you're a photographer and you're trying to show expression, you typically don't want to make the model open their mouth if they are wearing really dark lipstick. There's a reason for that. It becomes a painting in and of itself because the black is outlining the teeth. And you can't just paint the model's teeth black because, you can't do that. So unless it's like some sort of, I don't know, it's part of the narrative. But what you want to do is just keep the mouth closed if you're going for a full black lip. It's just going to attract attention away. Black on the white of the teeth is going to be too much attention. So what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to show more of the pupil. She looks very sleepy. It seems like she's done this transformation 100 times already. But why would we frame one out of the 100 and not frame the first one she ever did? So yeah, let's say she eventually got really bored of the transformation and she's done this 100 times. We want to frame the one where she first was initiated by the honeycomb god. And you know what I'm saying? You guys following me? I know I'm talking nonsense, but we just typically don't want to choose the in-between. We want to choose the moment of truth to paint when it comes to illustrations. If we could have changed the frame, would we have changed it to a more exciting frame? And that yellow in her eyes, that light in her eyes, guess what color that would be? Can anyone tell me what that color would be? The light in her eyes, the color in her eyes. What color would that be? Oh, I can do this magic thing. Cool. Yeah, exactly. I want it to be like, holy shit, man, this is really happening to me. Is this fucking real? I've been working so hard and training so hard to get my final form, and yes, my final form is here. So that means expressions really need to just tell all of that. She needs to almost even smile a little bit. Yellow, exactly. Thank you. Is that Ethan? Is that Ethan's portrait on you on your thumbnail, Vicious? Is that H3H3? It is. Alright, so we're going to get this yellow, and we're going to place it on the light of the eye. So we're just going to let that dominate the eye color, because that's what she's looking at. That's where her eyes are shifted. Merge that down. Yeah, it is. It is Papa, what's his name? What's his name? What does he call himself? Papa Bless? Alright. Maniac. He's a maniac. This, right here, do you see this? This, upper eyelid, it really would be hidden. Right over here. So why am I hiding the upper eyelid again? Why am I putting it away? I still feel like she's so uninterested in this. I feel like we still have space to really open up her eyes. Because Ethan's fupa is art. Perspective, yes. Yes, yes. Yes, exactly, Jeremy. Because if we raise her eyebrow up, raise her eyelids, if you open her eyelids, when you're like looking at someone and you're just shocked and you're just like, oh my God, did you just really ask me out? The eyelid kind of just is hidden. And then we have, when you're just normal and you're just looking forward, it's like, oh my God, I hope he asks me out. Like, you know, this is the difference. When we have a shock, the eyelids tuck into the eye socket, and we have less visibility on the upper eyelid space. So that's part of the reason why we're not seeing her upper eyelid. Perspective is probably the bigger reason. Yeah. So I'm trying to show more shock. And that means that we have more of the upper area of the iris visible just above the pupil. Okay, so it's still not excited enough for me, but it's there. It's enough for now. But you'll see the difference in a second. As for the lower eyelids, they have like almost no shadow on them, even though they're completely looking away from the light. They really need some shadow on them. They're looking away from the light no matter which direction it's coming from. They're always just tucked away from it. This light's coming from here, tucked away. Maybe this one is a little bit lighter on this side, but that would be it. You have too much contrast everywhere and not enough of the primary, of the secondary. Let's say the primary was a pale white that was like nearby somewhere. The yellow kind of just pulled in front of it and allowed that primary to carry some of the yellow secondary light source as well. And then we've got this secondary here from these pieces. There's diffuse light everywhere. None of these shadows even had a chance. There's diffuse light everywhere. There's little pieces flying around in the air everywhere. Okay. Just like that. And then we have this cast shadow here diffused. It's directly exposed. And then we've got the piece of this cape thing. Lag. Oh, there's lag? It hasn't told me I've disconnected. Is there like severe lag? Let me check my my stream health. Where is it? It's telling me the stream is good. She's kind of not, yeah, the edge of the chin is just a little bit confusing at this time. It's hard to tell, but at this point you kind of get away with it because she is experiencing the shadow that's sharpening that lower area of the chin that we wouldn't see. That we would see, sorry. So I'm just diffusing all of these shadows. They can't be this dark. Nothing is allowing them to stay this dark. And I'm bringing in the glow of this really, really strong piece in the background. And then finally, if she had strawberry blonde hair and she had any orange in her hair, the green and the yellow would just take it out. So yellow behaves like green sometimes. So that would be canceled out. It's not a warm palette. It's actually pretty cool. You may think it's warm because of this like just yellowness everywhere. But it's not, I would consider this cool palette. Because there's no redness, and when I say warm, I mean red. Not necessarily yellow. There is a warm version of yellow, but you're using for the honeycomb thingies a pretty cool yellow, which means a cool yellow that's close to green. It's behaving like a green. And then we've got the fact that we have all this glow that's combining and glowing in the background. So we're going to have something like this just outside of her face. I'm going to have to erase it away. I'm going to leave some of the glow on her arm. But all of that is just in the background, taking up half the painting. And then we've got that. So we've got little parts of that glow just off in the sky, thrown off by all this like combined secondary light source. And I'm sure they did a twirl around her as well in front of her, so we would have a little bit of that here. Okay, there we go. And there's always a hot spot. To every reflected light on anything, there's always a hot spot. Does anyone know what I mean by hot spot? Who can explain it for us? Who can explain what hot spot means? What do you think I mean when I say on everything that light shines on, there's a hot spot? Think about radial shading. Okay. So we've got all of this high saturation and washed out, maybe? What do you mean? Would it be better to apply shadows and highlights on a normal layer or on a color layer? Normal layer. I never understood any other layer types besides multiply. Just don't mess with layer types. Just paint everything, unless you're applying color on grayscale, paint everything on a normal layer. Yes, Taichu? Is that you raising up your hand? Exposed spot? Yeah, neck is disturbing. Calling something disturbing is not a critique. So I don't, when I critique something, I don't say, oh, this freaks me out, or this is creepy, and then that's it. You don't just call something disturbing. So if I were to critique your comment, change that word to something else, or if it's disturbing, you're talking about a principle of design, how to create something that looks disturbing. At that point, you can explain what she's using that's making the neck look disturbing. If you're just saying it's disturbing because it's unsettling because of the disproportions, then just say it's the proportions are disturbing. Or the proportions give out the effect of something disturbing. More light on a single spot. Thank you, Mary. That's exactly what I mean. So a hot spot is where the ray is perfectly aligned with the object's rotation. So we end up having this really, really hot spot of light. And that's what I'm doing over here. I'm pretending that there are honeycombs in front of her as well, casting that light back. So then we have a saturation problem. So how do we desaturate and then keep her back toward, so you've chosen a very difficult combination of stuff. So what I'm going to do is keep the yellows very, very dim outside of her character. They're still going to be yellows, but they're not going to be hot yellow. I'm going to actually give them a white yellow effect, but I am going to keep her very, very yellow, because she's the focal point at the end of the day. But we have all this light demanding the focal point. And then I'm going to fix up this whole face area. So these shadows are too dark, it would get diffused. And then you kind of just undo the expression by giving me these extra little tails on the eyebrows. You didn't need those. She's raising her eyebrows up and they're catching some light. So just let them go up. And we have more of an expression off of her. And what I'm going to do next is try to make her look a little bit more excited about what's happening. There's only so much I can correct. After a point, you're going to have to repaint the eyes and think about the perspective and think about the fact that she needs to look like she's interested in what's happening. At one point, you're just going to really have to go in and just repaint it all. Corrections only do so much. Liquify doesn't repaint for you. Write that back to me. Liquify does not correct. It does not... It just rearranges. It doesn't repaint. It corrects. By rearranging, but it doesn't repaint the painting for you. If you had a major perspective issue, perspective is one of those things you're just going to have to repaint. Or if you do a thorough enough paint over, then you will we'll have covered up enough. Then the lashes also are in the way of the upper eyelid. Again, perspective, lashes are in the way of the upper eyelid if we're in worm's eye, or if she's looking down. Yeah, the clothes look great. And then we have the lips. So I'm going to try to just bring in some kind of excitement to her. And then to make the neck look like it's tilted upward, at least we just smudge the edge, because that edge disappears. It's no longer one object in front of the other. Chin in front of neck. They kind of, you show the skin where they connect to each other. So we're kind of just blending that out. We still have all of this light though. So do you see that extra piece of skin underneath here? Catching some light. So we could just do a little thing like that. And it looks like she's caught some light. All of that stuff she's wearing is also very reflective. That like costume. That like 80s style. I don't know what it's called, this fabric. But that's very reflective. It catches the light very nicely. And then the hairline. The hairline is too low. We're in a perspective state, so that would just get pushed up towards the rim of the head. So don't paint a hairline like you're painting it from normal front view. It goes up. The part where the hair connects into the scalp, that hairline part, just disappears. Okay. So I'm still iffy on all of this exposure. You have a really, really high exposure. If you dimmed just a little bit more, it really would make this like effect where it's kind of a dark night scene, but we have a little bit of light come through, and it only happens where it counts. So I'm erasing all the exposure and then just painting all the exposure and just erasing where I want that really, really hot spot to be. And this is what I mean by hotspot, the part of the object that looks directly at the light. We start with the nose, forehead, upper part of the cheeks. But it was just too exposed before. And then on the really, really hot spot, like the hot spot of the hot spot, I bring in a dodge tool. And that just makes everything that much more glowy. And then you're missing a big component of hair texture, which are the flyaway hairs, and they catch a lot of light. I'm literally just going to get the yellow and use that to paint all these flyaway pieces that catch the light. Get a little dark in front. So I'm doing a really messy job. I am using a small brush, and I've told you guys when it comes to hair, you're allowed to use a single pixel width brush, but you got to be very careful. And after this layer, I do a lot of smudging and a lot of blurring. So it's only the outermost hairs. I don't like the shape of this one. I take it out. You probably should bring in larger pieces as well, but I only have so much time, and I'm just going to blur. That blur is just going to do exactly what we need, and which is just remove the focal point that these thin little brush strokes create. Remember, there's 3 ways to detail: edge work, contrast, and shrinking your brush. This canvas is huge. Image size. Okay. So I'm continuing this. I'm erasing some away. They don't have to be fully visible. They can be transparent as well as translucent, catching the light like that. Wherever we don't have shadows is typically where we're bringing these pieces in. And then I just like dodge tool if I feel like anything needs an extra amount of help. So remember, we're not painting the body of the hair with these brushes, we're painting the flyaway pieces. The flyaways, okay? She right now is in a silhouette. And that leaves one more thing to do before we finish up, which is just cast her in a silhouette in some areas where we're getting like all of this, where it's probably darken instead of multiply, where we're getting all of this, so this all gets into a silhouette. You see this light source behind her? It just completely throws her into a silhouette. And then we're starting dark, so we're putting in a frame. Oopsie. Excuse me. Sorry about my sniffles. Desaturate. So I'm bringing in another hot spot over here. She's wearing a pretty see-through thing, and you went full black. I think what would happen is she would actually have some subsurface scattering through here, through her shirt. But at this point, I'm running out of time. So I'm just going to cool down her arm one last time. She does have subsurface scattering on her arm, so that's a really cool thing you did. You brought us some of that red, but I have to bring some of it back down into a yellow. And then right over here, I'm just going to make sure we have consistent shadows. I'm actually going to stretch this cast shadow all the way over here. This is probably one of the only times you have a cast shadow. After a point, I was like, no more. No more marketing, no more to this, no more. I never even did one video where I was promoting some other product I don't use. The only ones I do are my own stuff. Look at that cast shadow. That cast shadow is more sexy than her boobs. I'm sorry if I get you in trouble with my videos if you're a kid. They have like super religious parents and they just heard me say boobs and sexy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I get you in trouble. It's just art. Art is hot. Okay, so SpongeBob. Sponge tool. Desaturate. If that's it, it's done. The name of this tool will always be SpongeBob. That's it, SpongeBob. And then blur. Thank you, SpongeBob. And then desaturate on the erase on the hot spot. SpongeBob. Okay, so let's look at the before and after now. I just need a couple more, thank you, SpongeBob. It's okay, you're done. I'm just going to use a little bit more over here just to show where all those hot spots are in the hair and the subsurface scattering. A little bit more over here. And these pieces, these embers, they really need to go up all the way. They're like the only other thing you have against all this black. SpongeBob. Okay, so I cast this shadow off this cape. I let that cape get some light. Let's look at the before and after. Her eyebrows are too black, but there's only so much I can do. Alright, so image size 2000. Okay. Before. You're painting like all you have are pencil crayons. You're painting like all you have are just oils. Even oils, you can make it feel like it's glowing if you do it layer by layer and working with a dry brush. Okay, so this has addressed all of that extra light in there. And if all you have in a black night is yellow, that's all your colors are going to be. You're going to have some changes here and there. Like if she had red, it would be a little bit more of an orangey yellow. If she had blue on, it would be more of a green blue because all that yellow is coming in and merging with that blue. But you really wouldn't have any other color. And this is how you have these successful paintings, when you have this really, really solid representation of the light source's effects. It's no longer about the character. It's no longer about anything like narrative anymore. It's just all about the light. Once you decide the narrative and the character and what she's going through, you can do whatever you want. If you feel like this is too much glow, which I think is really mesmerizing considering she's transforming, I would leave this. It's beautiful, it's cinematic. This light glow, this bloom, it's really making me feel like this is like a final form moment, which is what you're going for. It feels like a stadium or something. You have stadium lights in a black scene, you're going to get all of this. If you wanted to bring in another color, all you have to do is think about it like this. How is this yellow, so let's think about it. How is this yellow affecting, so let's choose the most common yellow we're finding in here. So it's this. How is this yellow affecting this color, and this color? How are they affecting these colors? How is the color affecting all of them? If you have a purple in there somewhere, how is the yellow affecting it? And you just got to think about it mathematically. Yellow and purple are opposites to each other in the color wheel. They just don't get along. Orange and blue are opposite to each other. There's yellow and orange, and so that's going to cancel out a lot of the blue, and we're going to be left behind with a blue-green. So the blue-green in this environment would just look a little bit like this. So a blue in all of this, like a really great blue, like a strong blue, like a shiny blue, wouldn't be allowed to stay blue. A lot of that yellow is canceling out the blue, so we would get like a blue-green. Something like this. And if it's a dark scene, it goes down to this. So this is what this blue looks like in a yellow dominant light source environment. Green, of course, we're getting a yellow-green. Something that looks like this. And the red and green are just they're not friends either. And let's just look at the color wheel. Let me bring out the color wheel for you. Which is, all right, where's a good one? They just never give us good ones. So the opposite of red is green. There's a lot of yellow in green. So we're gonna cancel out some of that red, and what's gonna be left behind is a closer, more friendly version of that red, which is an orange. So a lot of that red is gonna look like, and that red is gonna stay dark. So it's gonna be this kind of red, kind of pushed into an orange. So reds look like this in a yellow dominant light source environment. Okay, so it's about how the colors pass through the filter of yellow. Okay, so this is what yellow does, especially if yellow is coming from all kinds of angles, all kinds of sides, coming from all versions of itself. It comes in this value, it comes especially this value in the light sources. So that's how you color balance, by doing that, by thinking about how these colors pass through the filter of the light source's color. The light source, this is the fundamental, I'm talking a lot, but the fundamental line, the line of code in the universe is, if a light source, let me start again. The light source casts its value and its color on an object, be it a big light source or a small light source. All right, that's the fundamental. Write it back to me. Okay. So this piece is another example of expressions. You're painting eyes like they're drooping or they're falling apart, and the issue with that is it's a style that you have right now, but style is not style for a student, it's habit. So I'm going to do this really quickly, but she looks old. All right? And we're using lines only. You're using a line right here to show where the lower eyelids are. And what that's done is, again, it's caused this continued flat but old feeling painting. Just around here. And she does look young because you've used a youthful lip distance from the nose. You've kept the eye corners high, so she still looks young. But just this expression that she has is a little bit like a sick person smiling, trying to find the good in everything. That's what I feel like I'm coming up. She's very sincere. It's a very sincere but kind of sick smile. It's just, that's the narrative I get out of this. Which is really sad, because now I just made myself sad again. So expression was old, sickly, kind of desperate, kind of innocent, kind of afraid, especially because of the haunch shoulders. And now she looks just a little bit more, she just looks like a nice person who has a cool little pet, and like a cool character, but also one of the nicer characters in the tropes. So the sweet healer kind of deal, but also deadly in her own way. But that shoulder thing and the face before looked like she was nice, she was sweet, but she was sick. And I've talked to you guys before about drawing characters that have sick looking faces. They look like villains. You just have to look at Dr. Evil. Okay? He looks sick. He looks no eyebrows, barely any eyebrows. Pale, dark circles. He looks sickly, because that's what we always want to do. Scare the viewer into thinking this really is the villain by giving them these very, very close to skull-like features. Okay, so her haunch was unrealistic and disproportionate. It was like she had this permanent haunch in her back, her haunch. And I brought that light back up. Do you see how sickly she looked? And this is a constant style that you have back and forth through the eyes here. All right, as for the stance, you might want to see if you can, here, let me see if I can do it like this, actually. I haven't tried it this way. Okay, so I'm just going to tilt her hip towards the, yay, it worked. Towards the side here, so it looks like she's posing with a little bit more sass and attitude compared to before, where she's just haunched and she's like, ugh, you know, like sick. All right. I think she's supposed to be blind, so it makes sense that her eyes would not be focused. Okay, that I give you, if she's supposed to be blind. But everything else is also needed. That haunch in her back, the sickly eyes. If she is, if her eyes were burned into blindness, I guess that's different. You might want to track down some good references. Beware, though, of eyes that have like diseases around them or something like that. So you're just not doing this constant. I know this student, so I know that they're drawing this constant saggy eye. I know that's a style or habit they picked up. It's not style, it's habit. I'm just showing how that fabric wraps around her breast and then doesn't go straight into her other arms like a sari. Okay, so before, after, before, after. Any questions? I did do a challenge, folks, about sickly characters. I did do a villain challenge early. That was the first challenge we did together. So you might want to look into the challenge history. If any of you are interested in joining past challenges, just so you can have some reference work, inspiration work or something like that, go to Istebrak.com. And just go to community, and they're all here, the resource packs. I haven't put up the resource pack for Magical Companion into the history. It's not running anymore, but I'll move it over here. But all of these have been written and designed in such a way that they help promote a really, really high variety, diverse portfolio. So they range from landscape to character design to illustration. So you really want to look through these, see if you are having trouble finding a narrative that you give a fuck about, because it's very hard to give a shit about everyone else's stories. You just want to write your own. But at the same time, sometimes we aren't inspired by our own stories, or we're not writers ourselves. So we have a little bit of trouble finding something to inspire us, just so we can draw something, just so we can put something on paper. So these are serving that purpose, I hope. Is she standing on her tiptoes? She looks like she is. If she's not, it's a simple matter of doing this really, really quick fix. We just lower that ankle down. Now she looks like her feet are flat. You do need to show how the upper part of the foot kind of just shows where the toes are. And you need to show the thinness of her ankles. The bone structure and the anatomy all around her body is just a little bit challenged here. Thinner ankles. Okay. All right. All right, so before, that haunched back and those sickly eyes were really, really, really just not letting the character come through in their confidence. She seems like she's confident. So that leaning on one leg and the eyes and the happy smile. She seems like she's nice, but she also has like a deadly weapon. She seems like one of those nicer characters that the protagonist falls in love with or has a relationship with. And that's why we don't want to use those sickly tropes on her face. He also had a lot of value sharing around the nose. That needed to be fixed. So that's it for today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.